More than $10 trillion of new investments have been announced or are coming just since the election on November 5th, in addition to purchases of $142 billion of American-made military equipment by our great Saudi partners, the largest ever. $1 trillion more in terms of investment into our country and buying our products. And when he told us about your generous statement as to the $1.4 trillion, and all I could say is thank you very much. But we have now, I think, substantially over $10 trillion of investment. And now when I add the $1.4 trillion, we easily break that number. So that's investment or investment that we think will soon happen.
In 4 days, Donald Trump may have rewritten the global rules of artificial intelligence. He flew into the Middle East with one mission: unlock trillions in Gulf cash and flood the region with America's most advanced AI tech. What he walked away with was staggering: over $2 trillion in deals, thousands of AI chips, and the promise of turning oil kingdoms into AI superpowers. But beneath the headlines is a deeper story, one that could reshape the balance of power between the U.S., China, and the world's most volatile region. The real action began in Riyadh. Saudi Arabia came to the table with more than gold-plated hospitality. It came with a plan to dominate the post-oil world. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman signed off on a $1.2 trillion package, the largest tech and infrastructure deal ever inked, between the U.S. and a foreign country. The deal includes $400 billion in AI infrastructure, from chips to cloud systems. Another $300 billion is earmarked for military modernization, powered by U.S. defense tech. The rest, it's aimed at turning the futuristic city of Neom into a smart metropolis run on American-made software and sensors. For Trump, it was more than a deal. It was a legacy builder, nearly 10 times larger than the $110 billion arms agreement he signed with the Saudis in 2017.
I was in Saudi Arabia in May, and we are bringing back hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States, and we understand that, and they understand that. Some of the things that have been approved and are currently under construction and will be delivered to Saudi Arabia very soon, and that's for their protection. But if you look in terms of dollars, $3 billion, $533 million, $525 million, that's peanuts for you. Should have increased it.
Next came Qatar, punching above its weight. It offered $200 billion, but in far more strategic sectors: quantum research, defense AI, and semiconductor R&D, areas the U.S. rarely shares. In return, Qatar gained deep access to U.S. supply chains and secured aerospace licensing for domestic manufacturing, including Boeing drone components.
Boeing.
And the United States of America. Boeing purchase agreement signed on behalf of the state of Qatar by His Excellency Badr Mohammed Al Mir, CEO of Qatar Airways Company, and behalf of the United States, Kelly Ortberg, President and CEO of the Boeing Company.
Trump's critics once accused him of isolating Qatar during his first term. Now he's flipping the narrative, turning Doha into a precision partner.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior.
But the real surprise? The United Arab Emirates. The UAE stunned observers by committing $800 billion over 10 years, with half of it going to joint U.S. Emirati ventures in AI chip fabrication and data center expansions, including facilities on U.S. soil. Another $120 billion flows into public-private clean energy innovation, with U.S. firms like Nvidia and Palantir receiving massive equity stakes in new Gulf subsidiaries. To put it in perspective, this single UAE deal dwarfs Trump's entire 2019 trade agreement with Japan.
Agreement's the extraordinary digital agreement that we're signing. So that digital agreement is a very big deal in its own right. We're signing today set standards on the $40 billion in digital trade between the United States and Japan, and we just won a big, talking about digital and talking about the internet, but we just won the big case, as you know, you people would really know, right? But that was a big case that we won on net neutrality.
And even overshadows the Phase 1 China deal from 2020.
And some of the numbers that I wrote down, on manufacturing, they'll be spending $75 billion. They'll be putting into our country, okay? They're going to be putting into our country $75 billion on manufacturing. $50 billion worth of energy. So that's great for our energy people. We're the number one in the world now. We weren't. We're now the number one energy group in the world. We're bigger than Saudi Arabia, and we're bigger than Russia. We're bigger than everybody.
All told, it wasn't just diplomacy. It was a $2.2 trillion high-tech arms race, and Trump wasn't asking. He was auctioning the future to the highest bidder.
It's an incredible thing. Now, here's the good news. I've been doing this for 4 days. I leave now and get onto a 42-year-old Boeing, but new ones are coming. New ones are coming, and it's been an incredible 4 days. I want to thank your family. Your family is so unbelievable, the job they've done, and your father has been really incredible. The job they've done here is incredible, and we've made it work. And you know, they were being wooed by others, but there's no more wooing. I think we're in pretty good shape. There's no more wooing. I've been friends with these leaders, 3 leaders in particular that we saw over the last 3, 4 days, 5 days, and they're great people. They're great people, and they love our country.
And the bidding war didn't stop at money. It went to the silicon that runs the future. Trump came to the Gulf not just selling America's chips, he came offering the crown jewels of U.S. tech, the Nvidia Blackwell GB300 chips, processors so powerful, the Biden administration had previously locked them behind export restrictions. That changed overnight. Within hours of Trump's Riyadh visit, 18,000 of those chips were greenlit for shipment to Humain, a Saudi AI startup bankrolled by the country's $700 billion public investment fund.
As you know, artificial intelligence has been a revolutionary technology, the most transformative technology of our time, maybe of any time. And you've heard plenty about the capabilities of artificial intelligence. You've also heard how AI is going to transform every single industry, meaning that it's going to be the infrastructure of every single industry. And Humain is going to be building the AI infrastructure here in Saudi Arabia.
But the Saudis didn't stop there. U.S. chipmaker AMD struck a $10 billion collaboration deal with Humain, opening the gates for joint R&D centers, training programs, and future co-designed chips. The message? Saudi Arabia wasn't just buying power, like it was building it at home with U.S. blueprints. In Qatar, it was less about quantity and more about access. Qatari firms secured direct licensing from Nvidia and Intel, letting them bypass third-party intermediaries. They'll now develop AI accelerators for use in military drones, cybersecurity, and predictive oil logistics, all under U.S. partnership. But no deal turned more heads than Trump's final stop, the UAE. There, he signed off on a jaw-dropping agreement, 500,000 of Nvidia's most advanced AI chips, delivered annually from 2025 to 2027. That's 1.5 million ultra-advanced processors, enough to rival the total compute capacity of the EU. 1/5 of these chips go directly to G42, the UAE's government-backed AI firm that's already working with OpenAI and Microsoft. The rest? They're going to fuel massive US-owned data centers being built in the Emirates, bringing Silicon Valley to the sands of Abu Dhabi. Trump didn't just reverse Biden's chip bans, he flipped the chessboard. Where Biden saw national security risk, Trump saw tech diplomacy leverage and cashed it in.
Just in a matter of weeks, we just reached a historic trade agreement with the United Kingdom, and over the weekend we reached a breakthrough agreement with China. Both outstanding deals. China's agreed. We have to get it down. We have to get the little details down. And Scott, you're going to work on that very hard, but China's agreed to open up to the United States for trade and everything else. But they have to do it, so we'll see what happens. But
behind the handshakes and golden swords, this trip was about countering one shadow power, China. Over the past 5 years, Beijing had made deep inroads in the Gulf. Huawei, Alibaba, and Tencent quietly became fixtures in regional infrastructure, offering cheaper cloud services, AI surveillance tools, and sovereign data models tailor-made for monarchies. Biden's White House tried to push back with restrictions, banning the export of top-tier U.S. chips to the Gulf out of concern they'd be funneled to Beijing. Trump? He had a different playbook. If we don't give them the chips, he reportedly told advisors, China will. By flooding the region with American processors, Trump's strategy is to pull Gulf economies into U.S. tech gravity, locking in billions in deals and locking out Beijing. The result? An emerging AI Iron Curtain, with the Gulf states now deeply embedded in the U.S. tech ecosystem. If the Cold War was fought over oil, this new front is about data centers, compute power, and algorithmic influence. But even chips need raw power, and Trump wasn't leaving without securing the next generation of energy dominance. In a surprise announcement in Riyadh, U.S.-based Burkhan World Investments signed a $9 billion deal with Saudi Arabia's Grand Mines Mining. The goal? Develop vast reserves of lithium, cobalt, and rare earth minerals hidden under Saudi soil. These are the building blocks of not just smartphones and EVs, but fighter jets, satellites, and AI infrastructure. Until now, the U.S. has been dangerously dependent on China for these minerals. With this new deal, the Gulf could become America's alternative supply chain, shifting the global balance of resource control. This isn't just about oil anymore. It's about who controls the elements of the future.
And buying our products, and nobody makes military equipment like us. We have the best military equipment, the best missiles, the best rockets, the best everything. Best submarines, by the way. Most lethal weapon in the world.
Then came the defense windfall. In Qatar, Trump inked a $96 billion mega deal with Boeing, delivering up to 210 new aircraft, along with a $10 billion commitment to expand Al Udeid Air Base, home to the largest U.S. military presence in the Middle East.
Boeing purchase agreement signed on behalf of the state of Qatar by His Excellency Badr Mohammed Al-Mir, CEO of Qatar Airways Company, and behalf of the United States, Kelly Ortberg, President and CEO of the Boeing Company.
The Qataris also ordered a fleet of MQ-9 Reaper drones, solidifying their role as America's strategic partner in the region. In Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince walked away with a record $142 billion defense agreement, covering missile systems, cyber defense integration, and advanced radar stations.
In addition to purchases of $142 billion of American-made military equipment by our great Saudi partners, the largest ever.
These deals dwarf any previous Middle East military sales under Trump or Biden.
And also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East. I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
As Trump boarded Air Force One, the numbers spoke for themselves. $2.2 trillion in total pledges, 500,000 high-end AI chips shipping annually. Nearly $250 billion in defense and aviation sales. Batteries, a new mining frontier for critical U.S. supply chains. But the biggest wild card? Syria. Out of nowhere, Trump declared the lifting of sanctions on Damascus, citing a need to give Syria a chance at greatness. He met with Syria's new president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, signaling a diplomatic reversal from years of U.S. isolation. No timeline, no conditions, just a handshake and a photo op, right in the middle of a tour selling weapons, chips, and power. For a president who had once bombed Syria, it was a stunning pivot, and it left allies and enemies scrambling to interpret what comes next. Was it about oil, Iran, Israel, or simply Trump being Trump, a deal-maker drawn to disruption?
Normalizing relations with Syria's new government, as you know, beginning with my meeting with President Ahmed al-Sharaa.
Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. The Gulf is no longer just an oil kingdom. It's becoming America's AI vanguard, built not by war, but by wires, wafers, and wild ambition.
I shook more hands than any human being is capable of doing. That was a long deal, and they were big people. But they were starving for love, because our country didn't give them love. They gave them a fist bump. Remember the fist bump in Saudi Arabia? He travels all the way to Saudi Arabia in that case, and he gives them a fist bump. That's not what they want. They don't want a fist bump. They want to shake his hand.